You know, you've got one guy, world champion, huge fan base. Another guy, two-time world champion from Leeds, huge fan base as well. Stick it in the middle of both cities in Sheffield, and we've got 11,000. Going to be a great night. I think it's the kind of fight we should be making. You know, doubling up down from Joshua against White next week as well. Great fight, huge fight. And these are the kind of fights that I think British boxing needs more of. We brought a lot of international fighters over, but I think when you get a chance to make a great domestic fight, you should do it.
Leigh Wood's always been adamant about, you know, getting that Forest Crown homecoming sort of match. Why wasn't it this one?
Because it's October and because it's right in the middle of the Premier League football season. And I think, unfortunately, when he lost to Maurizio Lara, it really put a spanner in the works for the City Ground fight. You've really got probably a 2 or 3 week window where you've got a chance to make a fight of that magnitude at football ground. And unfortunately, when he had to rematch Maurizio Lara, that moved the fight till October and it made it very difficult. So we had some great conversations with Nottingham Forest. I'm convinced they want to do the fight. And I think, you know, he's already said to me that if he wins, I have to deliver him the fight at City Ground. Otherwise, we might lose him as a fighter. So we'll see who comes out victorious on October 7th.
This past Saturday, Spence versus Crawford finally happened. I know you picked Crawford, but it was one-sided.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I thought he'd stop him, but I didn't expect it to be as one-sided as it was. You know, I think there's a lot of people. One of my reasons for that was one because of how good Terence Crawford was, but also because Errol Spence has got more miles on the clock, and what I mean by that is the car crash, you know, the retina operation, a couple of tougher fights. I don't think he lives as well between fights as Terence Crawford, but it was a total domination, and just shows you how good Terence Crawford is. I mean, he's a 3-division world champion, he's a 2-division undisputed world champion. I think he becomes a 3-division undisputed world champion quite easily, and he's finally getting the fights to showcase how good he is, but also showcase him as a personality, because he's got a lot of it.
Yeah, definitely. In regards to a rematch, do you think that rematch should be warranted at 154?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because when you do a fight like that, a lot of the time it comes with a rematch clause, and a lot of the time it's down to the fighter to exercise that rematch clause. Sometimes the crowd, the public and the broadcaster don't actually want to see a rematch, but tough because the fighter has that. You know, it's a bit like Coley against Billum Smith, right? He's got a rematch clause, so you're going to have to see it again. But quite right, because the champion gave him the opportunity. Weird in a situation like Spence against Crawford, but it is what it is. Now, I don't know whether the terms of that rematch warrant or allow for a fight at 154, but I would like to see Terence Crawford fight Charlo, but I don't think we'll see that. Obviously, he's going to fight Canelo, and I guess then he'll move up to middleweight, and then the belts will become available. So maybe he makes a charge at 154.
Yeah, some fans are getting onto Derek James. You know, Bomac spoke out saying that he didn't even have a game plan, and some fans are saying, you know, he should have stopped it a little bit earlier. What do you think of that? Both the stoppage.
I think the stoppage was fair enough. I mean, look, he never stopped trying, but it's when he tried harder. That's when Terence was really counter-punching him beautifully and making him pay. So Derek James is a tremendous trainer, and you know, just because you lose to Terence Crawford don't mean that you're not a very good trainer. You fight at the highest level and like that, and sometimes you're going to lose.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate now about who's number one pound for pound, Inoue or Crawford. Who you got for number one?
Yeah, I got Crawford, you know, consistently over time. It's very difficult for those lower weight class fighters to get those kind of accolades, and I think sometimes there isn't the liquidity in the divisions of elite talent to allow them to be true pound for pound top fighters, but obviously Inoue is one of them, but I'll give it to Terence Crawford.
Yeah. You know, speaking about Inoue, he's moving up the weights. This is at 126, right? Inoue just fought at 122. He might come up in weight again. People are saying that he might lose, you know, at 130. Do you think, you know, one of these guys could face
Inoue?
At
the end of the day, he's going to get beat by moving up the weight classes. That's the only way fighters like that get beat. A bit like Lomachenko. Really, he's a featherweight, probably a super featherweight, moves up to lightweight, it starts becoming more difficult for him. And that's the same with Inoue. Sooner or later he'll move to feather or super feather. You know, we've got the winner of this one. We've got Joe Caldina at super feather. Inoue is a tough fight, but those bigger guys will definitely fancy their chances against him.
Yeah. Haney versus Prograis.
Yeah.
Apparently, reportedly that, you know, it's getting made.
Yeah.
Is it done?
No, definitely not done. Mike Coppinger announced it was done last week. I did text him and say it's not.
Yeah.
But it's close. Regis really has confirmed the fight really to us, and we're just waiting on Devin Haney. But I'm very confident that fight gets made.
in regards to how's it going to work in terms of Haney? Is it just one fight? Is it going to be multiple fight deal? How's it going to work?
We'll see. I mean, Devin's made it clear and Bill's made it clear that if they had a choice, they'd like to be with us, but we've got to deliver the fights. And obviously, Regis Prograis is our man, and we've delivered for him. We've delivered a big money fight, one of the biggest in boxing, and it's up to him. You know, he believes he can beat Devin Haney, and that's what he'll be trying to do.
Yeah.
Early, you know, when you look at your schedule for the rest of the year, would you say this is one of the biggest fights on the schedule, almost a fight that could have been a pay-per-view?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we moved to DAZN, you know, we wanted to do less pay-per-views. And I think, would this be a pay-per-view on Sky? Possibly, not definitely, possibly, depending on the card. Obviously, you see Eubank Smith and fights like that at pay-per-view, and it's just a really good fight. Like, I feel like another huge fight we're announcing tomorrow as well for DAZN, and that's another fight that could be pay-per-view, and I think that's what we need to do more of. Really, we need to have those big fights monthly that really draw the attention of the subscriber and the fan, and build the narrative as well. And if you can't get excited by Wood Warrington, you're not really into British boxing. Like, it's just an old school, classic domestic fight for a world title, and you know, the schedule will be packed with fights similar to this.
A lot of people are saying this is one of the biggest fights in British boxing at the moment, up there with the likes of Eubank Smith. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, Eubank Smith's got the name values, but it's got no championship on the line. It's not really the elite level of the sport, but it's quite interesting because it's Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Smith's a very good fighter. This is arguably the number one in the division against a two-time world champion that was number one for a long time, who is looking to become a three-division world champion. One guy from Nottingham, one guy from Leeds, in Sheffield. The styles clash perfectly. It's just a really good fight. So it's a fight that means more than Eubank Smith, but obviously there's interest in that as well.
And when could we see any undercard news for this card?
I mean, I'm just waiting on a contract from Cecilia Brackhouse. Terry Harper will fight her here as co-main event. Once that contract's signed, which we've been assured it will be by Terry and by Tom Loeffler and Cecilia Brackhouse. I expect to see Janae Boston in a big fight here as well, but we'll make an official announcement on the undercard before tickets go on sale.
And last one from me, there's a few rumours that Jack Catterall could be headlining Liverpool against Jorge Linares. Could you just give us any update on that?
Yeah, Jorge Linares is definitely one of the options we have for Jack Catterall. I like the fight because Jorge's on a mission to try and land a big fight, and he's a very good fighter, and obviously everyone in the UK knows him from the Kevin Mitchell fight, from the Anthony Crolla fight, and I think it's a good fight for Jack Catterall. Jack does want to fight Josh Taylor, but I don't think that's there to be made just yet. But I think if we can have a big fight for Jack Catterall against Jorge Linares, it can move him on to either the Prograis Haney winner or Josh Taylor.
For Leigh Wood, of course this fight isn't at the City Ground, but for the next fight, of course, it's supposed to be at the City Ground, and it's set to be at the City Ground. And so, for opponents-wise, Josh Warrington was this huge kind of domestic fight to get all the fans for in England. But who else do you think, for an opponent-wise, say if he wins, would get the same kind of tickets around for?
I think that the Joe Caldina fight's a big fight. You know, I mean, Joe would want that fight in Cardiff, but wherever it generated the most money for both guys, you know, it would give the winner of this fight a chance to become a two-division world champion as well as a 2 or 3 time world champion. Joe's on a great run, looking tremendous. So I think that could be an option for him for sure. Or listen, I mean, this fight will be a cracker, and if it's a cracker, you may see it again. But we'll see.
Of course, and for this fight, like you mentioned, it's going to be an amazing fight, and both of these fighters have mentioned probably not got loads more fights left in them, but for this, is this kind of this legacy-defining fight, and that was pretty much necessary for them?
Yeah, I think both guys just want the biggest fights possible. We know that comes from the domestic fights. Josh Warrington, like, both guys have got a couple of things they want to tick off. Josh Warrington wants to box in America in a big fight for his fans, and Leigh Wood wants to fight at the City Ground. So although they're fighting for a world title, they're also fighting for a chance to make sure they get that opportunity.
And for Warrington, of course, he's coming up with defeat, but how do you think his kind of head's at? And do you think he's that kind of strong mentality fighter to be able to come up with defeat and be able to go straight into his world title?
Yeah, I think he's massively underrated, Josh Warrington. I mean, I think a lot of people just look at his fan base instead of looking at his resume and the wins he's had. You know, I think he's fresh. I thought he did well against Lopez. I thought he had a nightmare start. Come back in the fight, could have won the fight. I thought he took everything from Pico Martinez, who's been clearing everybody out, and beat him. We know about the Lara defeat, but I think he's physically in a great place. Mentally, I think he looks good, and I think he'll believe he's a favourite in this fight. He's a 50-50 fight, and he thinks that he's stone cold certainty to win fight.
Eddie, Conor Benn's been cleared now, so what's the plan for him now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm giving interviews on it all the time. It's frustrating because obviously there's a confidentiality with UCAD, but everybody seems to keep telling me he's not been cleared. I mean, when your suspension gets lifted and you don't receive a ban or a penalty and you are cleared to box, I don't know what else cleared is. Like the British Boxing Board of Control.
Language is quite plain.
Yeah, but the British Boxing Board of Control follow UCAD rules. So they have 21 days to appeal. I'm sure there's a lot of people in their ear telling them to appeal. But he keeps doing what everyone's asking him to do now. And he's been, and then people say he wasn't cleared by the WBC. Well, he wasn't banned, he wasn't fined. They said, we're happy that there's no intention of, cheating in this incident, and you're reinstated in the rankings. If that's not cleared, I don't know what else. So it's like when are you? He hasn't boxed now for a year and a half. He's been fighting this for a year. When are you going to accept that he's cleared to box? And I don't think the public ever will, because it's like they've got to be in their bonnet. And I said to Conor the other day, you've done your job. Now you've got to get in there and fight. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks, but I would like him to fight in September and then go into a December fight. He wants to go into the biggest fight possible now, but he's had a tough old time, and to go back in the ring after a year and a half into a massive fight after everything he's been through, I'm not sure how wise that is.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Who's just young? Staying with the Conor thing, obviously he's in the welterweight division, so would a fight with him and Bud Crawford be?
Yeah, I mean, look, so you're talking about a young elite prospect, world-class fighter against pound-for-pound #1. So that's the fight that everybody wants to aspire to get in. But I want to get him back on track. Eubank, Kell Brook, Josh Taylor.
What about someone like Boots Ennis?
Yeah, good fight. Another great fighter. Another elite fighter. But that's the fights that Conor wants. But after everything that's happened, I do want to see him get back in the groove, get his confidence firing.